Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I just received a text message from Randall. He will be joining us shortly. So if you don't mind, we'll just wait for him to log in and then we'll begin.
Good afternoon. Courtney, do I have a quorum?
Yes, sir, you do.
Okay, great. Everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the Planning Committee for the fiscal year of 2022, correct, Courtney? And so can we put the agenda up on the screen so everyone could see it as we get started, please?
Sure.
So here's our agenda for today's meeting. I'm Randall Brown, Chair of the Council and Chair of the committee today. I'd like to go around and let everybody on the committee introduce themselves. So Courtney, could you just call roll and they can introduce as they're called?
Sure. So of course we have Mr. Randall Brown, Mr. Rashad Bristow.
Bristow present.
Thank you, sir. Miss Liz Gary.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Miss Jill Haino.
Hey, y'all.
Good afternoon, Miss Haino. And Miss Bambi Polizzola.
Hi, Miss Bambi.
Good afternoon. So this constitutes the entire planning committee. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. And I believe that the vice chair, Dr. McKee, will be joining us shortly today as well, but not on Wednesday. So she should be joining us shortly, just for your knowledge, Courtney. Okay. And thank you all for your willingness to serve today. And let us begin. We have our meeting, our mission statement. So if we could post that, I'll read it really quickly. And here on the screen before us, you see the mission statement for the council, and that is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianans with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. And posted now on the screen, you see our protocols for today's meeting and every meeting that we have via Zoom listed there. I won't labor the point unless someone requests that I read it, but there they are listed. I'll give it a few minutes for everyone to review. And before we begin today's work, and I do believe that Dr. McKee has just joined us, so welcome, Madam Vice Chair. So again, there you see the protocols for today's meeting and every virtual meeting that we have. These are our standard protocols. All right, I believe we can move forward now unless someone requests more time. At this time, I'd like to call on our guest, if we have any present, if they would like to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. This is Kathy Dwyer. I'm Chair of the Louisiana State Advisory Council for Developmental Disabilities and co-chair of the Louisiana Dental Task Force for Adults with Developmental Disabilities.
Good afternoon, Kathy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Good day and greetings to everyone. This is Hyacinth McKee just coming in to support today. Greetings.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for being present.
Hey, this is Ashley McReynolds, parent and program director at the ARC of Louisiana.
Hi, Ashley. Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, y'all. It's Lillian Dejean. You guys know me. It's good to see you guys.
Hey, Lillian. Thank you for being here today. And I believe Kelly Monroe from the ARC of Louisiana is present, but she's having some mic difficulty. So thank you for being here, Kelly. Is that everyone? I believe it must be. Okay. So if we could put the agenda back up on the screen, Courtney. Please. So the first thing we should probably do is let's review the budget. So you see it linked there in the documents. Do you have it ready to pull up for us to see, Courtney? Thank you. So would you like to give us some background on these numbers, Courtney, please?
Sure. Let me make sure my microphone is on. Can you hear me? Good.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So as of right now, I cannot anticipate that we will receive the additional $500,000 that we are advocating for 2020 for our state general fund. So as of right now, I just have the $507,517 budgeted for our Families Helping Families contracts.
That's the current budgeted number, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But if we are successful in our advocacy, that amount could increase.
Right.
Okay. And then this amount, the $645,000 amount, is actually a little higher than it was 2 years ago. It was $600,000. And then when the onset of COVID occurred, a lot of our contracts were not able to be successfully fulfilled. So last year during the planning committee, which met in June, we were able to beef up that that allotment to 750,000 because we had moved funds that weren't used the previous year to that year to this year. And so that's what led to a lot more initiatives for the 2021 plan. So we're not anticipating having those same amount of funds as last year, which is why the federal allotment is back down, but it's higher than it was before, 645,000.
Hey, Courtney, it looks like you have a couple questions from Bambi and Liz when you're ready.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. So I don't know who was first. Brenton, if you could let me know.
Bambi.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to know with the new funding, I hear there's a lot of federal funding that's coming down. Does that impact any of the funding that the DD councils are getting or allocation of the funds you were just speaking of?
If it affects our state general funds, then I'm not aware of that, but the NACDD has not indicated to us that we will receive additional funding. They indicated that we would see pretty level funding. Like I said, this 645,000 amount is slightly increased from the previous 600,000 amount. So I have not been notified from the feds of that we are expected to receive, if that answers that question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
And Liz?
Thank you. So I'm not familiar as much with the whole budgeting for the council, but my question is that when you get your 5-year plan, you get a 5-year budget basically, and then you divide that? No. Okay. So how could it come in at 750 last year? Was you're saying there was excess from 2019 that wasn't used, or 2020 that bumped it up? So,
so when we had contracts for 2019 initiatives that run into the calendar year 2020, but then like I said, because of COVID, those activities got stopped, and therefore we didn't spend all of the money from 2019 during that contract year. So that's how, right. So that's how last year's budget got beefed up to 750, was because of the funds that weren't used for 2019. But we're not expecting, but we've created new initiatives and contracts. So we're using all of that 750. And so this year, we're starting over, we're going back to our original amounts, but with a slight increase.
Okay. And so was that allowed with the rollover because of COVID? Because I know in the past, it was always said that you can't roll over money. If you don't spend it, you lose it. So is that?
There's a 2-year obligation and a 1-year liquidation period. And so because it was 2019, we had through 2021 to spend those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Which will be done.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Which will be done. We will have spent it by that time frame.
So we've got 645,000 to come up with activities that are both possibly continuing from what we were doing during the last 5 years, or for new contractual activities. So our total budget for the year, which has already been reported to LDH, is $1,152,517. But if that increases, if we do see more federal allotment, then like I said, this could go up both in our advocacy for more state general funds, or if more federal funding comes down the pike. But I figured this was the best amount to start with, because I don't want to assume that we're receiving funds, and I don't want to create initiatives that cost funds that we might not receive. So this is what I felt would be best to start with, or what is actually the truth, what we actually have to start with. But we can, like I said, we can always increase it if we're notified of more funding coming our way.
Changes in funding, yes.
Right. And we can do that at any time of the year.
Right. And obviously, if we're notified by the feds that we have more money coming from Congress, then we'll be happy to convene again and allot the funding. And of course, if we're successful in our advocacy efforts with the legislature, everyone will know that, and then we would convene again in that case to allot that funding if needed. Okay, so that's where we stand with our budget. Any other questions before we move into planning? All right. Hearing none, can we put the agenda back up on the screen for a moment, please? All right, so next we have the recommendations from the council standing committees, and that would be Education and Employment Committee and the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committees have sent their recommendations to us to be considered. And now there they are before you.
So I will say, if I may interject, I'm sorry.
Yes, please do.
I will say that I liked that everyone had kind of put what objective they would recommend their ideas to be. I think that's going to be really helpful when trying to think of activities underneath each objective.
Noted. We'll try to remember to do that again.
Yes.
All right, so these are the recommendations from each of the standing committees.
Randall, I don't know if you want to read them or if you just wanted to show them.
I could read them, yes. Can you make the print just a little bit bigger?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So for the self-determination and community inclusion recommendations, they are as follows. Under Objective 2.1, create a list of providers by region to be posted to the Council and the Louisiana Department of Health's websites. The list should include providers, preventative health services, prevention of chronic diseases, disease services, dental, behavioral health, and sexual reproductive health services. The list would also be made available to case managers for distribution. And the second suggestion from the committee is under Objective 2.2, establish an initiative to educate first responders and direct support professionals on how to treat individuals with disabilities in an unbiased manner. And the final objective from the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee for the plan is Objective 2.3, and that is to establish an initiative to address discrimination in housing for people with disabilities. And then next we have the recommendations from our Education and Employment Committee, and they are as follows. The first objective is to build capacity in higher education institutions for those individuals providing services to special education students, teachers, and support workers. The second is advocating and providing for input on high impact systems that can be used to leverage best practice around IEPs and enable each member to fully participate as members of the IEP team. The third objective is to advocate for educational systems change based on emergent education issues that present themselves during the federal fiscal year of 2022. The fourth objective is to advocate for type 2 and type 5 charter schools to be required to meet the 85% rule of enrolling students with disabilities at rates similar to those found in traditional public schools, and advocate for and monitor equitable funding based on minimum foundation program, specifically regarding the charter compacts under objective 4.2 in fiscal year 2021's action plan. And the fifth and final objective for education is to advocate for increased meaningful opportunities for stakeholder input, improve practices to facilitate stakeholder input, and consideration of stakeholder recommendations. And the ideas for employment are as follows. The first objective, advocate for access to LRS pre-employment transition services with school districts for all students with disabilities. And the second is to provide education to families about what LRS transition services are available and how to access them. The third recommendation is to share Developmental Disabilities Council employment videos featuring individuals with developmental disabilities in their jobs. The fourth objective, advocate for systems change based on emergent employment issues. And the fifth objective, support efforts to examine the effectiveness of the Louisiana Medicaid buy-in program.
Hey, Randall, Jill Hano has her hand raised.
Yes, Jill, you have the floor.
You're muted, Jill. Jill, can you unmute?
Yes, sorry.
There we go.
I didn't want to interrupt. Were you done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's perfect timing.
What do you mean under number 4? What is a charter compact?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but charter schools have to have rules for how they operate, and that's called a compact. The contract or the agreement they make with the state, I would assume with the Department of Education, is called a compact.
Okay.
And so we want to make sure that the charter schools are providing for people with disabilities to be able to participate and use charter schools for education should they choose to. The federal rules already say it should be happening, but we want to make sure that it is.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Randall, it looks like we have something in the chat from Dr. Hyacinth McKee. And she says, being that we have a contract with Louisiana Post-Secondary Alliance for fiscal year 2021, I see no objectives to address post-secondary opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Is there room to discuss this matter and or include it somehow? Thanks.
Yes, there is. That's what today's about. These were just the recommendations from the standing committees. We can suggest, for the next 2 days, we can suggest anything we'd like to include in the plan. And thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for that suggestion.
Yes, so today and Wednesday, I'm sorry, we'll be discussing
Yeah.
old or continuing and new initiatives
Correct.
for our new plan.
These are just some very good, I believe, very good options to get us started with the planning process. And these come from the standing committees. And so these are I think they've done commendable work here in making sure we have these issues plainly addressed and ready to implement.
She did follow up to say she would not be present Wednesday and asked that the committee address that matter.
Correct. So noted, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, any other questions or comments regarding the objectives and recommendations from the standing committees? Do we all agree that those should be included as they're written in the plan?
I don't hear any objections. Oh wait, looks like Miss Liz Gary has her hand raised.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, my dog just started barking, so forgive me if he starts barking. I'm gonna mute real quick if he does.
Okay.
My question is that so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm not opposed to it, but it seems like a lot of initiatives. Is that normally, what is a normal year in the amount of initiatives? And then how much, I think it's based on how much you would have to put into each of the initiatives to see if you can actually handle 13 initiatives. So I guess that was my question when you said, are we opposed to any of this? I guess it would, I would think you have to delve deeper into them, or is it that you just approve it and then you start talking more in detail of
That's
what
what I want to do is we need to approve it so we can start talking about it and
Gotcha.
fine tuning it.
Okay.
And fine tuning it. Because
Okay.
right now we're starting, think of it like a blank piece of paper. We're starting with a blank piece of paper. And so these initiatives, I think, allow us a very good starting point to begin discussions of the objectives for next year.
Okay, so this is just to start discussing. This isn't saying we want these. It's okay. Thank you.
Correct. This is to get discussion start. Hopefully we'll end up with most of these because this is work done by the committees. That's all very important. But yes, I'm asking, we agree that this is our starting point for the plan.
Okay.
These initiatives are our starting point.
No objection from me.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other comments, suggestions, or feedback? Okay. Thank you, Courtney. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, these are the regulations we have to go by, requirements from the feds.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that the committee was aware of what we are federally obligated to address in our plans every year. So if you look at the capital Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3, these are activities that every state council on developmental disabilities must address every year in their plans. And
Thank you for providing us that.
I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that this is something that we are required to continue every year.
Correct. And thank you for reminding us. So they're before you. I won't read all of that here, but they're before you. You see, and it's linked in the agenda for today and tomorrow as well. The requirements our federal partners give us to meet annually. And so there they are.
I believe Miss Gary has her hand raised again.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Randall and Courtney. I just wanted to say it's very interesting that if you, obviously we all can read and notice, but all three of them are specifically directing the importance of making sure that we are working for individuals with disabilities. And so I think it's very, I mean, it's pretty strong message that's being sent that we need to make sure that as we're doing these are but focusing more on individuals with developmental disabilities to make sure that we're involved in the self-advocacy movement and making sure that we're getting them what they need. So I appreciate this, Courtney. Thank you, Randall, also for bringing that to our attention.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Also, if I may interject, I'm sorry, just to take
yes.
Above these three activities, I just want to make note of the statement that our plan goals need to be derived from the unmet needs of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. So in everything that we do, we need to make sure that what we're doing is meeting unmet needs of the individuals that we serve.
Thank you for that clarification, Courtney. Do we have any comments in the chat?
You do, from Dr. McKee. She says, in looking at 4A3, I'm wondering where we are addressing this requirement. I just want to be sure that message is clear.
So in Roman numeral number 3, is that the one that she was referencing, Brenton? I can't
4A3.
Okay. Okay, so support and expand participation of individuals with developmental disabilities in cross-disability and culturally diverse leadership coalitions. This activity is actually in our current action plan, and I can pull that up and show you that it is an activity that we do address every year. So we can almost copy and paste, I believe. Let me pull that up real quick. Sorry. So activity 1.3.1 is provide information and support for participation of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families in cross-disability and culturally diverse leadership coalitions and advisory bodies.
Thank you. Was there follow-up? Did that answer the Vice Chair's question, Brenton?
Yes, her follow-up was just she wanted to make sure the public was able to have access to it.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
You do have a hand raised from Ms. Corona Corley.
Yes, Ms. Corley, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to echo what Dr. McKee pointed out. It's listed on there. However, it's never actually really addressed. We put a lot of pretty words on documents and we never fulfill it. We can look at this committee today and we actually see only one person that represents cultural diversity. We do not have that representation throughout the council. And yet we have more than just one person in this DD community that is diverse. We can even address English language learners. We don't have any English language learners represented on our council. That's a problem. and that sends a wrong message to our members of the ID and DD community. We have had a letter sent from the feds directly speaking about this same problem, and yet your answer to our vice chair is that it's on there from the fiscal year for 2020. It has not been addressed. That was the point in the feds submitting that letter. That is the point for why the vice chair is bringing it up. We're supposed to have a cultural diversity committee that has yet to be formed and has yet to meet. It is a problem, and it is a problem that I'm not going to shut up about until we finally address it. And we need to really and truly make that a priority, because there are more diverse groups in this DD community than just Caucasian. So I would greatly appreciate if we can make that a priority, and we can make it a priority today. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Your comments are noted, Ms. Corley, and that committee is being formed and will be announced shortly. And in fact, our vice chair will be chairing it. So just for your knowledge, that is in the works. We just had a lot of things we had to get started with regard to our legislative agenda. So that is on our radar to begin that cultural diversity committee very soon. And as far as only one member of the council being of a minority group, that was not by design. I asked several people to serve, and the people who are present or who agreed to serve on the committee. So as far as diversity of the council's makeup, that is a constant thing we strive to uphold and do, and we'll continue. You have my commitment to continue to make sure we are meeting those diversity goals. And I want to thank you all for being here today and raising the issue with us publicly. Okay. Any other questions?
I believe Dr. McKee has her hand raised.
Yes, Dr. McKee. You have the floor.
Yeah, I don't want to, not the camera just to be on, I just wanted to be unmuted, but I don't want to take up much time on this, but I believe that Ms. Corley is making a strong point, and I really wasn't going to say much about it until the council meeting, which I still plan to do as well. But I am very concerned about our presence in the community not showing enough people of color from our council. I'm very, very concerned about that. And I think that we're at a place where it just seems as though we keep sweeping it under the rug and we're not addressing it. Case in point, we had this beautiful video that came out just a couple of days ago that says, meet the council. And it was beautiful work. I mean, I enjoyed looking at it and I was just excited to see it. Now, keep in mind, I was not aware that it even happened. Or that it was going to happen, but I think it probably went through committee, and it probably was on my fault that I didn't catch it, that that the committee was planning to do such good work. But I'm very concerned about, after I watched the video, it is not a representation of the public that we serve. There is no self-advocate of color in that entire video. The only picture is a picture of April, who is our former chair, bless her soul, we should let her rest. But she is not the only person a self-advocate of color that sits on the council. I am very concerned about that video and what it represents, and it does not show the people that we serve. And so, again, I do appreciate people of color in the public that do attend these meetings and that they continue to attend, because they deserve to be heard. They deserve to be acknowledged and respected. And although the work was really good work, and I know that people work to put that video together, it is not a representation of me or any other individual or self-advocates of color. And so again, that was an opportunity for us to make people of color feel like they are inclusive and that they're a part. And we missed that mark, y'all. We missed that mark. And so I plan to address it at the full council meeting. And I do expect to hear from the council all of the attempts that they made to reach out to board members, council members, self-advocates of color. I need the attempts that were made to those self-advocates of color to include them to speak on that video. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I'll be the first to say that we could have and should have done better with that video in terms of representation for the community. And also that you're more than welcome, and I welcome your conversation at the next council meeting, but you and I need to get together at your earliest convenience to begin to look at when to establish the diversity committee as far as its first meeting, since you'll be chairing that as per our agreement. So that's certainly something that is high on our priority list now and has been mine all year, but we continually have a number of things that have had to be dealt with first, but that is priority one for me at this point, is to get that diversity committee both formed and begin its work. So at your earliest convenience, Madam Vice Chair, just reach out to me and we'll begin to set that up. And that's a perfect thing to discuss, the video in its work as well. So,
Hey, Randall, you have a statement in the chat from Ms. Karonda Corley that says our DD Council currently has 6 individuals out of 28 that are representative of culturally diverse. We may need to start looking at that angle too.
You're correct, Ms. Corley. We do need to look at that angle. Thank you for pointing that out.
Randall, I cannot find the raise my hand.
Okay, you have the floor.
Just 2 things for Dr. McKee. Are you referring to, it's like a 2-minute video and there's only actually 3 people? I think I'm one of them in the video. Is that the one, or is there another video?
That's the video I'm speaking of, the one that says meet the council.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that too. And also with Ms. Karanda's comment, one of the issues is she said the representation. A large number of our members are people from our state agencies. So I just want to say, if we need to address that with our state agencies, that they need to, have more consider diverse representation on the council. That is something that we can certainly do. It's not just set in stone who they have on the council. So just want to throw that out there for future conversations.
Right. I appreciate that, Bambi. Thank you. And you're right. Okay. Do we have any other comments, questions?
I don't see any, Randall.
Okay. Well, your concerns today, Ms. Corley and Madam Vice Chair, are duly noted. And as I said, I'll be reaching out very soon, Madam Vice Chair, for you and I to discuss when that committee can begin its work. So And I look forward to a brisk discussion of this issue at the April council meeting. Okay, unless we have further comment, let's move along, Courtney.
Okay. So right now is scheduled for a review of the 5-year goals and objectives that have been approved and a
Right.
review of our current action plan.
And Courtney, have we heard back from the feds on approval for the 5-year plan yet?
That the 5-year plan has not been submitted. We have to have activities to go with our goals.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Different, whole new day here. Okay.
And that will be done in August. That's due
Right.
in August.
Right. But the council has approved the 5-year plan, as you see there. So if you want to click on it, we can begin reviewing it.
Okay. Where is it? No, just had it open. Okay, I've lost this document. This is the one I want. I'm sorry, it's not showing up in my, there it is. Shared documents. Can everyone see the document? Does it need to be enlarged any?
I think you could enlarge it just a little bit if you could.
Okay. No, not to tell me. Is that better?
Yes, I think so. So before us on the screen, we see goal number 1, the self-advocacy and advocacy leadership goal of individuals with developmental disabilities and their families will have access to information, supports to become effective leaders of their communities, and advocate for systems changes on behalf of themselves and other individuals with developmental disabilities. And the objective provided there for 1.1 is individuals with developmental disabilities of all ages will have access to opportunities to increase their awareness and knowledge of rights as a contributing member of society, including subject matters on, but not limited to, advocacy voting, exploitation, prevention, financial stability, and responsibilities in decision making. And then objective 1.2, Louisiana Self-Advocacy Network partner groups and citizens with developmental disabilities will be supported in self-advocacy, training, systems change, advocacy, and through participation in a variety of boards and commissions. And goal number 2, community living and supports, to be fully participating members of the community, individuals with developmental disabilities, including those with the most challenging needs, and their families will have access to quality supports and services, inclusive, affordable health care resources across various service delivery systems, and shall be treated equally by all members of the community. Objective 2.1, individuals with developmental disabilities will have increased access to appropriate and affordable health care, including primary and specialist providers, preventative health services, and prevention of chronic diseases, dental care, sexual and reproductive health services, and behavioral health services. Objective 2.2, individuals with developmental disabilities and their families will have access to and be served by qualified trained professionals, including direct support professionals, first responders, and other professionals who will value and promote inclusive community living. Objective 2.3, individuals with developmental disabilities and their families will have increased access to safe, affordable, and accessible housing, allowing for inclusive community living. And that's what I can see on my screen. Courtney, thank you. Goal number 3 for education and employment. Individuals with developmental disabilities will have access to quality education in inclusive and safe environments throughout all stages of life, and access to self-determined, individualized, equal, and gainful employment opportunities, and provide competitive wages and integrated work environments. Objective 3.1, parents of students with developmental disabilities will have increased access to early diagnosis, identification of needs, early intervention services, child care and information, and opportunities to collaborate with educators regarding individualized educational planning or programming to meet the needs of their students. Objective 3.2, individuals with developmental disabilities will have increased employment outcomes upon transitioning from secondary education settings, access to employment opportunities, inclusive of services from highly qualified employment support providers, and increased competitive and integrated opportunities for employers who are educated on how to support people with developmental disabilities.
FFY. Sorry. Whoopsie.
So I know this is a very lengthy document. I don't know that Randall would want to read every.
I don't think the community can stand me reading the whole document.
But this is the current action plan, and it is available on our website for members of the public if you would like to view this. And committee members, this was linked to the agenda for your convenience so that you can all review it.
I think maybe Jill has her hand raised.
Yes, Jill, you have the floor.
So, because when I was prepping for the meeting, I was kind of confused. The document that says 5-year plan 17 to 21 that was ratified on September 5th is the FY21 plan. It's not a separate document just for 21 in the agenda was there?
That document is for the 2021 action plan.
Okay.
We do, I guess you could say, like a working document over the course of the entire 5 years.
Okay.
So when you see the 22 through 26 5-year plan,
All right.
it's intended that this is what we're starting with, and then every year we're gonna add to it a little bit, or we'll modify it as needed during that or throughout the 5-year period. So it's a working document of the councils every year.
Okay. And Randall, can I ask another question, Randall?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Can I remember it?
That I'm not sure of, but you're more than welcome to ask it if you can remember it.
Good God. When is our when is our 5-year plan due to the feds, and when is our FY2022 plan due to the feds, and where is my notebook?
Okay, if I may answer.
You certainly may.
I don't know where your notebook is. But the 2022 plan, state plan, is due to the feds for August, and that's for the 5-year. And being that this is the first of the 5-year plan, then what we create, or what the council approves in April and then ratifies in July, that's what will be submitted to the feds in August.
For FY22.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, again, that's because it's the first year of the 5-year plan. Now, every year after that, or after this year, within that 5-year period, if we don't change goals and objectives, then I would just have to submit our update to the feds by the end of the year. So by December 2023, I'll have to submit the council's 2023 plan. Does that make sense? No? Okay. So I'll try to rephrase.
Wouldn't the 23 plan have to be due in December of 22?
No, ma'am. You guys would not be creating the 23 plan until April of 2022. So when you guys approve a plan in April, then the staff has to release a solicitation of proposals for contractual activities.
Right.
And then we get contracts for you guys to review and approve. And then you ratify your plan in July.
Okay.
So if there's not any substantial changes to a 5-year plan, then we have until December of that calendar year to update the feds on what that next year's plan.
Okay, that makes sense.
But because this is the first year of this 5-year plan, it's due in August.
Okay.
Which is why we're meeting now to establish
Correct.
the goals.
Trying to keep us in compliance with our timelines.
Correct.
Randall, you do have something in the chat, and you also have a hand raised by Liz Gary.
Could we please get to the chat first, and then Liz has the floor?
Okay. From Miss Kathy Dwyer, says, I'm not sure if and when this would be appropriate, but if you would like me to give the council an update on the dental task force and legislation we are working on for this coming session to achieve part of one of your objectives, I would be happy to do so.
Thank you for that offer, Ms. Kathy, and very shortly I'll call on you to do just that. Thank you. All right, Liz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Randall. So I guess I just have a question. So since we're talking about objective goal 1, objective 1.1, and in reviewing all of the recommendations from the planning standing committees, it does not appear that any of those would fit under this objective. So at this point, we create a new objective, or we present a new objective, or we think about it. Is that how this kind of works? Being that I've never been a part of this before, I just want to make sure I understand.
Well, Courtney, would you like to address that?
Okay. So can I ask again, what was it you were referencing that's not on our current goals and objectives for the new 5-year plan?
So there are activities already listed for your current action plan through 2021, but now we're looking at 22-26, and it's talking about objective 1.1. And yes, you have something right now you're serving, but if we're making the plan for next year, the ones that came from the council standing committee, they're not ones on this one that would fit that objective. So do we create something or make a recommendation of something, or possibly continue something from 20? Is that how we would move forward to make sure we cover that objective 1.1?
Correct. So
okay,
we're going to get to the point where we're going to consider what do we want to continue from the 2017 through 2021 plan, and then what do we want to create that's brand new.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
And let me pull up the agenda to see where we are right now. Okay. So we've actually progressed pretty quickly through today's agenda. The next activity that's listed on there is to discuss continuing contractual activities. But we'll absolutely leave this up to the chair and the rest of the committee if you would like to change the order of what you guys want to discuss. Do you want to discuss first what you want to continue, and then discuss new objectives or activities? And then also, if you want to do every activity that you would want to assign funding to, which is contractual. Do you want to do all of your contractual activities first and get the budget out of the way, and then go to your non-contractual activities? Right now, I'm going to leave that up to you guys as to what you would like to do first.
Okay, well, before we, since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, let Miss Kathy Dwyer have the floor for a moment to talk about the dental task force. And since that is part of our plan, and she has graciously agreed to inform us of the task force work, I think this would be a good spot for us to stop and let Miss Kathy inform us of that work and how we can best collaborate to help them. So, Miss Kathy Dwyer, you have the floor at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I appreciate it. We have been working for about 2 years now on the dental task force, which was assigned by the State Advisory Committee for Developmental Disabilities, where we OCDD on the services that are provided to citizens in Louisiana with developmental disabilities. And the task force is now at a point where we created a final report, which we shared with the council. We've also recently created a position statement and somewhat of a fact sheet, similar to what the DD Council prepares for their legislative initiatives. And we also have an infographic, which I can either share on the screen or share in the chat.
Feel free to do both if you'd like.
Okay, let's see, how do I share on the screen? I'm not seeing any option to do that.
Ms. Dwyer, if you can wait just a moment, we'll have to promote you to panelist mode. So hold on just a moment. Ms. Dwyer, are you with us again? Ms. Dwyer, if you're with us, you are muted.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Sorry, when you switch to the panelist mode, all these messages popped up, so I was trying to deal with one at a time.
There you go. We can hear you. You have the floor.
Okay. Let me bring up, we've already shared the report with you. Let me bring up our position statement, if you don't mind. Hold
Yes.
on one second. Let me see how please bear with me since I'm fairly new, or not new, but
We understand Zoom's always a learning curve for all of us.
yes.
Continually.
Okay, there it is. Let's see. Okay, this is the position statement we created. We basically pulled information from our report that we shared with you. And I'll give y'all time to kind of read through it and let me know when I can scroll down more for you to read the rest of it. It's 2 pages. But it's basically pulling key components out of the report, stating what our purpose is, the mission to address the needs of adults 18 years and older with IDD who need anesthesia or IV sedation for routine dental cleaning and x-rays because of aversions to probing in their mouth. We've come up with this position statement, stated the issues that individuals and or their families have experienced in trying to obtain the necessary and needed dental services. And we've also then drafted some principles that we believe are true in order for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities to have a healthy and productive life. The priorities we have chosen are in order of most priority. Priority 1 is what we're working on right now, and that's providing comprehensive dental coverage for those with developmental disabilities in the waiver programs, in the DD waiver programs, as well as those that are residing in the intermediate care facilities for developmental disabilities. We define, I don't know if y'all need me to go back up for y'all to read this or just listen to my brief description and I can upload it later just for sake of time. We define, let's see, let me stop sharing this one. And that's my daughter, Jenny, in the background participating as well. We've defined comprehensive dental care as the following, where basically it's the same services that children receive under the EPSDT program with a few things that are currently available for adults. That's mostly like the denture information. And then at the bottom, we add special services. This is primarily to help individuals who have the aversions be able to get the dental care, be it with under anesthesia, or we add like behavioral supports therapy to assist with desensitization so they can become accustomed and comfortable with going to a dental office and receiving the care in the dental office instead of always having to go under anesthesia. The goal of the committee has always been to provide the best care possible dental-wise, which is healthcare, for our adult population and to save the state some money. We have found that the state is definitely paying a lot more on the back end due to health issues that have arrived from poor dental care. In one instance, one young lady constantly aspirating bacteria from an infected tooth, causing infections in her lungs and then having her lungs removed, which ended up causing probably approximately $500,000 in cost to Medicaid and the waiver program when you consider all the hospital stays, emergency treatments, and then extra direct support that she needed. Then let's see, the next document would be, See, that's the position statement. I'm trying to figure out how to move to the next one. I guess I have to do stop share and go again. The next one would be our facts, our fact sheet. Let's see, where's that one? That's our formal report. Here. Okay. Whoops. This is our fact sheet. Again, we pulled this then from the position statement and some of the report. This is what we would like to everyone to share. Again, similar to the DD Council's fact sheets, what we need legislators to do and why, the principles on the left. Some citations cited on the left, and then the Dental Task Force contact information, which is the State Advisory Council email. In terms of support, I'll upload these. We would like anybody and everybody who can and are willing to respond to our position statement with a letter of support to the email, and then your name or organization agency name would be added as one in support, and we will eventually be submitting this to legislators. There's one more item that I'll quickly show you. Is the infographic that I'll also upload.
Miss Kathy, we have your formal plan, as you know, and so if you could share with us, though, that fact sheet, that'd be great, because that's something we can share easily with everyone.
Right, and then there's an infographic as well.
Okay, that's great.
And right now there is legislation that has been filed. HB 172 is not in the posture we would like it to be. We do have permission to work with a gentleman with the legislature to help prepare amendments to put it in its appropriate form. So I'll be sharing that. I could share that with you as well. I made some temporary edits just for my purposes.
Sure.
But this
Please, I mean, anything you can share in terms of your fact sheet and any infographics you have, we'd love it. It would help us help you better.
Okay, and thank you for allowing me some time to share it with you. Right now, it's
Sure.
Representative Butler and Edmondson, that are working on the legislation. Rep. Butler is the author of HB 172. So I'll go ahead and upload these documents in the chat.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your presentation to us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, and so that should take care of everyone getting access to that information. I believe that was in the chat, so that should be able to alleviate that. And Courtney, we can resume schedule now.
Okay, so then I'll go back to my question is, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to do contractual activities?
Usually it seems to go smoother and faster if we start with what we're already funding, which would be contractual activities we're already funding, and agree that we want to keep, which ones we want to keep and at what levels. And then we begin to look at new.
Okay. All right. So I'm unsure how to split my screen so that I can show you our current action plan and try to show you what we're going to be adding to the new action plan.
Okay.
So since you guys already have access to our current action plan, it would probably be better for me to share my screen of the new action plan as we add to that plan.
All right.
back to the top. Okay. So if you guys are looking at the 2021 action plan, we're looking at contractual activities only at this time. So the very first activity, 1.1.1, is basically funding $20,000 to People First, which is the state's self-advocacy organization.
I would recommend we keep that objective and amount.
Okay. The next contractual activity from the 2021 plan is 1.2.1, and that is to fund the Partners in Policymaking program for $90,000.
Again, I would recommend without objection, we keep that activity and amount as well.
Okay. Randall, at this point in time, do you want just the committee members to just raise their hand, or do you want them to go ahead and just allow them to speak if they have any comments?
Yes, I mean, if anybody has any objection to keeping these, let me know. Let us know now. Otherwise, it's my recommendation to both Courtney and the committee to keep these objectives and amounts in the plan and at their current levels.
Okay. Well, you guys, if y'all bear with me on the formatting, I will correct all that later. Okay. The next contractual activity from the 2021 plan is to fund LACAN for $215,000.
What golden objective?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's 1.2.3.
I can't see that on the screen.
Oh, I'm adding to the new plan. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Randall, are we just speaking up or talk or raising our hand? How do you want us to do this
You
right now?
can, if you want the floor, you have the floor, Liz.
Okay. I just, my only thought with LACAN is that and I know this is more of going forward in a design situation, but one of the things that I've thought for years and years and years with LACAN is that we spend a lot of time and energy asking these people to share their stories, but I don't find that there's a lot of time and energy sharing on them actually I don't want to say how to advocate, but I think it's more about them getting up there and talking about their stories, but yet we're not teaching them how to talk about the ideas. I'm kind of like a mini partners, but in the sense that we're actually educating these people on how to be more than just tell their stories. And I know that sometimes it gets deep in it, but if we're giving these people trainings as well as just the sharing of the stories, I think it's going to be much more powerful and impactful for these families coming out and understanding. One of the things I used to remember always asking is that we're sending all these LACAN alerts out, but yet a lot of the people don't even truly understand what's going on with alerts, only about writing their story. And I feel like you lose a lot if you're not actually learning about advocacy and how to talk to the legislators other than just sharing a story. And that's just a thought I've had for years on how with LACAN to make it more of a a systems change, as well as it's kind of like impact. It's kind of like both. It's an advocacy and can be systems change if you're able to talk to the legislators on a level of not just sharing your story, but also giving more on that. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just that's been on my heart for years. So I just think it's a thought that we should think about.
Well, it's noted. Thank you, Liz. Any comments in the chat, Britton?
We have one from Miss Lillian Dejan. She says, great point, Miss Liz. Education on disability, history, and culture could help with that. It lends to empowerment and awareness.
Thank you for that, Lillian.
I have a question.
Yes, Jill, you have the floor.
Because I was distracted by other, like, personal phone call, but so 1.11 we're making no, okay, 1.11 is gonna be for partners.
I just moved the funding of People First down to activity 1.2.1 because that was more appropriate under objective 1.2.
So 1.2. Oh my God. 1.2.1, you mean People First.
Correct.
1.1.1, you mean partners.
You got it. Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Okay. So there is no can.
We're
That's what we're
discussing that now.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, you're
No, it's
on.
okay.
You're on point. You're caught up.
Yeah.
Can I say something again too?
Yes, you may, Liz.
So, and this is going back to activity 1.2.3, which was last year. It's interesting because it does say in here, provides financial support, information, training, technical assistance, and leadership. And then it goes on to say to effectively educate policymakers on programs. So I think it's important when you're looking at those things, you're saying in here that you're going to educate and train people to give them information about programs. If all they're doing is sharing their story, then they're losing a lot because you're not really truly talking about the programs and you're not training and helping those people lead. So it's just, I think it's just something we need to look at as far as that goes, to try to get some more advocacy out there and get more people feeling more competent to actually be to speak on the behalf of people with disabilities as well as family members and things like that. So I think that's something we just need to kind of focus in on.
Thank you. Noted.
Randall,
But yes, Britton.
I was going to say Dr. McKee has her hand raised, and there's also a chat comment.
Okay, can we do the chat comment first, then Dr. McKee has the floor?
Sure. From Susan Reen, she says leaders work with members all year to teach them how to advocate with legislators. They have held workshops in the past and work one-on-one with members as well. And Dr. McKee, you should be able to speak now. I've unmuted you.
Thank you for that feedback, Susan. And Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say that I'm not sure where the language would be. Would it be in this document or would it be in the actual contract with partners? But I believe this is an opportunity for us to include language that involves cultural and diversity training. And maybe it doesn't go in this document, but perhaps it can go in the contract to partners, because I'm not sure if in the partners in policymaking, and I did it many years ago, but I'm not certain that if any of the training that they deliver, that cultural diversity and cultural humility is addressed.
I think we could probably do it in both this document and partners.
And then with that, I would like to, perhaps even, consider have that being really a lot of the language that we're doing moving forward in these contractual agreements with these entities that want to do business with the council. So if we can put it in here, that would be great. If it doesn't belong here, that's fine, but just making sure that it is in a contractual agreement.
Noted. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Randall, this is Bambi.
Yes, Bambi.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion to make a recommendation that language be included in all of our contracts, that there is diversity? I'm not sure the
I think we can make
Right.
that commitment here and then probably at the quarterly council meeting when we bring this
Right.
up.
I
make
was
the
actually going to
motion.
say or suggest that Dr. McKee make that recommendation at the next executive committee meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Either executive committee or the council meeting would be the best place to make that motion.
Right.
And then then that thereby would bind this committee and every contractual committee moving forward to that
Exactly.
motion.
Perfect timing, because once this plan is, if this plan is approved by the council and when we do our request for proposals, we can definitely make sure that that language is addressed in those requests for proposals.
Absolutely. And so Dr. McKee, if you would be willing to make that motion or a similar motion at the next executive committee meeting, I'll be happy to entertain it so that we make sure that the language is reflected in all our contracts moving forward. This one and those moving forward.
Okay. So where are we on the language for the LACAN activity? Do you
I think we've had our say on it, and it's a good thing. But I believe the language is already appropriate. I think we just have to make sure, as we talked about on the diversity issue, I think we have to make sure that our language is matching up to our work. And so I think in this case, the language is appropriate, and we would just continue it. And at the same funding level as well, I would recommend, unless someone on the committee has an objection.
Then the next activity on the 2021 plan is 1.2.4, which addresses advocacy events for $50,000.
And I would assume that means like conferences and such.
Correct. And on that note, the council typically does a conference every other year.
Correct.
The last conference we did was in November of 2019. So 2021 is due for a conference. However, we don't know if we need to prepare for one or not for this year. And it's getting pretty late in the game to try to schedule
Right.
a conference at this time. So
I think it would be fair to say it would be prudent to delay that initiative until 2022, just because planning one for 2021 hasn't even begun, and that would be an arduous task for the staff who are already shorthanded, and we're dealing with a lot of various stuff this year. And so I would recommend that we delay that until the following year.
We have something in the chat that says we can't see the actual item Ms. Ryland is referencing.
Now, this $50,000 is for conferences like you're talking about, Courtney, like we normally do every other year,
Correct.
a conference. This has nothing to do with our quarterly meetings we're required to have, correct? That figure, that $50,000 figure.
I don't believe that includes that.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure of.
I could be mistaken. I don't oversee that contract.
Yeah, I don't believe, I think it's separate, but I wanted to make sure.
Travel for council members and the quarterly meetings comes out of a separate pot of money.
That's what I want to make sure of.
That's strictly for advocacy related functions.
Activities, okay.
It's member meetings, roundtables for the CAN, when there are
Right.
conferences, any sort of training sessions that are held throughout the year. Also any sort of advocacy materials, things like that, that comes out of that particular contract.
That's what I wanted to make sure of. All right. Well, we definitely want to keep it, and I think keep it at that level.
Wait a second. This is Bambi. What we have
Yeah.
$50,000, but we're not going to have the conference. So is that the right number?
Well, that's up for discussion.
Can you explain that, Courtney?
That's why I was asking about the conference. If we're not going to do that, then this amount might be a little elevated.
Right.
However, it does allow for some training sessions, including targeted youth and young adults, which I know was an initiative that Ms. Dejan
Yes.
Council was very pro, but we
Yes.
can make that its own activity if we
I
want
would
to
recommend we do
separate
so. I would like to see Ms. Dejan's initiative be its own activity.
Okay, so that we'll create that new activity. So right now I'm just trying to, what are we continuing from the 2017-2021 plan? And then we'll create new activities later.
Courtney,
So
how
we
much
definitely
does
want to keep the activity. So the discussion needs to be how much we allot to the activity, given that we're still in restriction and COVID restriction is keeping us from meeting as we normally would, thereby holding the costs down somewhat. So I guess the discussion really needs to be how much do we want to allot to this in that light.
Randall, you have two hands raised, Liz Gary, Jill Hano, and then there's a couple of comments from Dr. McKee in the chat.
Okay, let's do Dr. McKee's comments first.
She had asked, can we do a conference for the youth advocates with some of the money? We can reallocate the money to the youth advocates, and then
Right.
that was answered. She's in support of reallocation of the money to the youth advocate efforts. Thanks.
Okay, and we're in agreement there. So, okay, Bambi, you have the floor. And then Liz.
I didn't have my hand raised.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Liz.
it was Jill and I think Jill was first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jill, Liz, and then Liz.
Liz was first.
Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
Liz, you have the floor, and then Jill, you have it. Liz,
Thank
you have
you.
the floor.
Thank you. How much did we spend, Courtney, on roughly how much was spent when we did a conference?
We spent $20,000.
Okay.
The 2019 conference.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
20,000.
So do we want to leave 30,000 then for this activity, given that we're not doing a conference?
Use.
What other support, facilitate and support advocate events other than the roundtable, the conference? What is the other ones, Courtney?
So
the other advocacy.
Right. So if we did like we did for our 5-year plan, which were the public forums and had to go through, different areas of the state, trying to solicit input. Of course, all of that costs money. So that's just, some of the things that we did when we were doing in-person activities.
Right. Which we will be doing again. We're just not sure when.
Right.
So I wouldn't leave this totally underfunded. I do think it prudent to adjust it since we know we won't have a conference this year because of COVID, because the planning alone would take too long to do at this stage. And we have so many things on our plate that are vital. And so would everybody be in agreement to allot $30,000 here?
Actually, if Ebony and Brenton are on, do either of you happen to remember how much it was for the roundtables when we did them in person? Do either of you happen to recall those figures?
In person, we usually budgeted $600 per roundtable, which, if you ask me, was kind of very much on the low end. But we asked our leaders to make it work. But that also did not include any cost associated if they needed, if they had any requests for an interpreter, or if they had any requests for printing of accessible materials. So that would be added on to their $600 allotment. Within that $600, they have to try to find a facility. They have to, depending on the time that it's held, possibly offer some sort of food, beverage, all their printing costs for any of the materials, any setup, tear down, pretty much anything associated with the cost of hosting that event. I always say the $600 I felt was kind of low because we started running into a lot of problems where as more people turned out to roundtables, the free venues got smaller. And so I think, I don't know, last few years I've always advocated for increasing the amount for their roundtable expenditures. But pretty much anything advocacy related comes out of that pot of money. So back in the day when we did Disability Rights Day, it came out of that pot of money. Any travel subsidies that people request to help them get to the Capitol for Yellow Shirt Days, it came out of that pot of money. I mean, a lot of it just comes out of that. And there is a chat from Susan Reen, who also said that with the roundtables being at $600, a lot of the FHF centers use some of their own money to supplement when the cost exceeded that. Also keep in mind that's any of our advocacy materials. So if there's any council brochures, LACAN brochures, if there were any hotel stays, we ran into that occasionally. If we had an early morning Yellow Shirt Day, we needed someone to stay at a hotel so they could be there, different things like that, as well as other events that aren't necessarily via LACAN, which might be a conference, or it might have been some travel associated with any of the planning or something like that.
So this activity is almost a catch-all for...
I would recommend that we reduce it by $20,000 because we know we're not having a conference. And let's leave at least 30 in there because we don't want to not have the money we need when we do start in-person activities to pay for that travel and such. So it'd be my strong recommendation, because this is kind of a catch-all for all things we do, that it be that quickly done.
I'll be right back.
You also have Miss Lillian Deschamps had her hand raised. Jill has her hand raised, but I guess she's taking a break. So get back to her when she gets back. But if you would like to allow Lillian to speak, I can unmute her.
And actually,
yes, let's let Lillian speak, please.
Hey y'all, Okay, sorry about that. I was echoing from my phone, but I heard that y'all mentioned having a conference specifically for youth earlier. I think it's great that we are considering our youth while having these discussions. However, I think it would be difficult to have a conference specifically for youth simply because, well, we don't really seem to have many youth in LACAN, and there's only me on the DD Council, so I'm not sure where we would get the youth to go to the conference. I mean, I think the recommendation of having, a youth leadership forum was so we could get youth involved in this world, but I'm not sure how we would advertise a conference.
That is
like
the plan, and that's why I'd like to see it reflected in the plan, even though we're not quite there yet. I want to keep that objective in our minds and on our plate. So that's why I would like to see it reflected.
Cool. And also, I'm gonna probably have to run because I have a doctor's appointment in like 5 minutes. But thank y'all for letting me chit chat.
Thank you for being here and your input.
Liz also has her hand raised.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
I think what Lillian said is great, but I also think that this is a great opportunity to start finding ways to start getting to those youth so that we start our self-advocates at a much earlier age. So if this is funding is able to help in some way with her getting the word out or whatever, or the council or other people getting the word out as to getting people involved, youth involved, I think it's a great opportunity.
It would.
And yeah, and there's also that opportunity to use it towards trying to do some kind of Zoom conference, a youth conference on Zoom if you had to start out with. But I would hate to take the money away from her or from the youth program when it could be an opportunity to start really expanding it for our youth.
We agree. We're in agreement there, Liz.
We also have 2 comments in the chat from Dr. McKee. She says, thanks, Lillian, for clarification. I am full support of your efforts to encourage our LADDC to keep informed of our youth. Thank you, Liz, for the comment. We need to do all that we can to support the initiative. And Ashley McReynolds also stated it would be great to partner with People First on this conference. I assume she means a youth conference. Or
Thank
maybe,
you for that, Ashley.
okay, she says People First works in some schools already.
Thank you. It would be a great opportunity, and we'd be happy to look at ways we could partner with People First and with whomever would be interested among our sister agencies and partner groups. It is certainly something we're going to work toward, and so I want the money to be there when we need it. So I think that recommendation should stay and is a fair amount for whatever we might decide to do.
Randall, we are at 2:43. We've been meeting for over an hour and a half. If you would like to take a 5 to 10 minute break, I would recommend doing that about now.
Can I say something on this topic before we move on, though, before we take the break?
Yes, you may.
As to where do we find the youth? I think it could be from our university programs that are part of another initiative that we're funding. So just want to throw that in there to make sure we keep that idea.
Sure, thank you for that. And Lillian will be chairing an ad hoc committee, and we will be working toward getting this off the ground. So I want to make sure that the funding stays there for us to start doing some work on this issue sooner rather than later. So thank you for that suggestion.
And of course, we can always utilize our Families Helping Families Centers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody is welcome at the table. I just want to make sure that we have the funding we need to do that. Having said all that, let's take about a 10-minute break and we will return. What's the time now, Courtney?
Time now is 2:45.
Okay, so we will return at 2:55 to resume the meeting. So Courtney, it's 2:55 by my watch. Do we have a quorum?
If we can get council members to share their video or start their video. And just so that we can get this on record, Mr. Brown, you are appointing Dr. McKee to this committee.
Yes.
Okay. So we will need to add her permanently as a panelist. Oh, wait, she's not with
I
us.
don't see that she's on.
Yeah, okay,
Just note that she is a member of the committee.
okay.
Do we now have a quorum?
We do.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Again, thank you for your work and attendance today so far, and we'll continue with today's planned activities, the agenda. So if we could put the agenda back up, Courtney, and begin that work.
The agenda, or do you want me to go back to the plan that we were adding?
Well, you can go back to the plan. I just wanted to give the agenda so everybody can refresh everyone's memory where we are, but that's okay.
Okay, so we are continuing to look at continuing contractual activities.
Right. We're making sure that the activities we are currently doing and funding, we're looking at each one to see if we want to continue to do it and fund it in the next year. And so far, the answer to that has been yes.
Okay.
So where we left off was $30,000.
Right. 1.1.3. Please let me know about the language of this activity. I want to make sure that it is succinct with what you guys want to include in this activity. And remember, we decided to separate out the youth activity. We'll create
Correct.
that later.
Correct. That will have its own activity, objective and activity line. You might want to add some diversity in terms of training for that activity, Courtney. Okay. Now, is everyone in agreement with activity 1.13, both in the language and the funding for that activity? Okay, hearing no objection, I think we can move on to the next activity, Courtney.
So if you're looking at the 2021 action plan, the next contractual activity or the next activity with an amount assigned to it is 1.3.3. And that is for council members to participate in trainings. And that's got a cost of $3,000 associated with it.
I think it's a good objective and it should remain, because again, we will be resuming in-person activities sometime, one would assume this year. We're just not exactly sure when. So I think that amount is still a fair amount to assume that we would need to, because I know we use that money whenever a council member asks us to attend a particular training or conference or something that would help us help better serve the community. And so I think that activity and that amount should remain.
The next activity with a cost associated with it is 1.3.4, and this is to fund council leadership training. So this would be for the executive committee of the council to participate in nationwide trainings and conferences.
Correct.
And that's got a cost associated of $7,000 tied to it.
And that too should remain an objective and remain that amount stable, because that's the money we use when the chair or the chair's designate goes to the national conference every year, among other things.
Can I ask a question, Randall?
Yes, you may.
So that particular activity is only to send somebody from the executive committee to a training or networking. It's not for any of the other council members?
Well, typically it's been used because when you go to the national council, it's the chair or the chair's designate, which is usually a member of the executive committee if it's not the chair themselves. I know I went in Delaware's place in 2017. And so that money is used largely for that, but it can be used for other things as the chair sees fit, in terms of if another council member wanted to use money or, for a conference of some sort.
Okay, so that would come from that pot if somebody wanted to
It could.
be able to
It
purchase it.
could.
Okay, thank you.
This is Bambi.
Yes, Bambi.
Just the distinction, as I recall, the 1.1.4 was for council members' participation, particularly in partners, because we
Yes.
couldn't, is that correct? Because
That's how it began, but we have since used it for some other conferences as well for council members.
Okay,
But
and
you're
so
correct.
what is, yeah, and I get what the 1.1.5 is for, but why do we have it separate?
Well, largely because that $7,000 or a chunk of it is used when the executive committee needs to be trained on something. But we can use that if there's anything left over, we can use it for any conference that any council member would need.
So Ms. Polizzola, are you referring to possibly combining these two activities?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, it's separated for a reason.
I would
And, you know,
caution
because
against, yes, it's separate for a reason. The
I don't know
reason
why, I
being,
can't remember.
the reason being is the national conference, we don't set those rates. The national conference is set by their staff, and then we have to send someone to it. And so usually that's the chair or the chair's designate, which could be any member of the council, but typically isn't a member of the executive committee. So that number's high because that's over several days, and it's usually in a major city, and you have to fly there and hotel stay and whatnot. And then if anything's left there after that, that can be used as the chair sees fit for any travel of the executive committee for training, but also the 3,000 can be used for training for any council member, but all of it can be used at the council at the excuse me, the chair's discretion for travel to conferences. But I would leave it separate and leave the amounts as they are. That would be my
Randall,
recommendation.
but
Yes.
what you said, what you said didn't answer my question, or maybe I'm not understanding it. I get the cost and all that, who sets the cost and all that type of thing, but it could simply be that support council members participating in training and educational opportunities, including in national training, networking events, and advocacy opportunities, and be $10,000. I don't, that's my question. Like, there's no reason why it's separate that I could think of, but I know there is a reason.
Well, I think the reason is more or less for transparency, so that you know exactly what's used for each category. But you're right, it could be combined. But I think the intent was to show what's budgeted for each category.
Also, Randall, you have a comment in the chat from Karonda Corley. Says, please add training regarding DD Act, Robert Rules of Order, Civil Rights Act, conflict of interest, and cultural competence for the council members and executive committee.
If we have opportunities to travel for those, we would certainly do so.
We also have another chat from Miss Melinda Elliott that asks, is the executive committee required to do specific training that would require separate money? And I believe Bambi also had her hand raised.
Yes, Bambi, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, I have my dogs barking right now.
That's okay. And Melinda, we don't currently have a training because, of course, we're in COVID. So, but that money set aside for when and if we do, it's there so that we could travel wherever the conference or wherever the training would be that we would need.
So this is Bambi. I think in response to Karonda's request, I believe your response was about like there's, if there's we could pay for travel for these.
Well, that's what this is. That's what this is about in terms of we're talking about travel and lodging and such, and participation with any type of training, which would be diversity, any of it.
But it's not just travel. I mean, it could be, I would see that more opportunities like for just for a webinar or like there might be some online opportunities that we could pay to.
Sure, but this is designed in with travel, like we're in person, when we meet in person and we have to travel to conferences and such. But absolutely any type of training that we would see fit to need would be included here. We could use the funds for.
Right, and that would include registration fees for any costs.
Correct.
With the training or conference or webinar.
And the reason why I raised my hand when I had my dogs were barking, I apologize. Can we have someone on the staff go back and look? These items have been on the plan for several years now, and maybe to see, there's a reason it's separated, and I think it might be good if we identified what the reason is for, and we probably could tell that based on going back and looking when was this divided into these two activities.
Yeah, Bambi, I think you are correct in that it used to be separated to just emphasize council members' participation in partners. We have not done the best job in the past of when we update activities of going in and merging things, and we leave it as is. And so I think that's how it ended up with separation. But I would say I'm probably 99% sure that's what happened here, but I can't say for certain.
I think you're right, Brenton.
And what is the rule? Like, why do we have to pull this out and not use just the partners in policymaking funding? I remember there was some type of rule where you couldn't have a
well, that was, I can answer that. That was because you're not allowed to use, and we don't do this anymore because we had to change the rule because National said don't. That whenever I went to partners, I was already on the council. And so they were not allowed to use the partners' money to cover my travel expenses for that because I was already on the council. So that $3,000 was used to help me and one other council member that year, and some since then before we changed the rule as per National advising us to. That's where that came out of. So it could be recombined back to $10,000 total for travel.
If I may make a comment?
Yes.
I don't see a problem with combining these activities, but the chairperson has the discretion of choosing, who goes to what. So I
Correct.
think it would be easy to, keep tabs on.
That was my point earlier, is that I think it would still, although I perfectly understand that the $10,000 it's all the same pot of money. Travel is travel, conferences are conferences. I mean, we'll go as we need to go to whatever the training may be, and wherever it may be. But it's the same pot of money, and it's the chair's discretion who goes to what and when. And so, but I wouldn't reduce the amounts. And I think that having it separate does help keep things easier to know what's set aside for what group. But of course, the $10,000 is the $10,000, and the chair would use it. Me or any other successor would use that money for myself, any member of the executive committee, or any member of the council to attend whatever trainings we would deem necessary.
Randall, we have a question in the chat.
Yes.
Ms. Karanda Corley says, what are we doing with these monies since we are not traveling currently? Do we have a surplus of money in these areas?
We have not been utilizing these funds as of late.
Correct.
However, there are some virtual events that do cost money. I believe Dr. McKee has actually requested to participate in some events. So
yes,
we do utilize this, but
and
it's
so
not
those
$10,000.
Any training that we do, any training, be it virtual, any training, if we go to a conference physically, if we do virtual trainings that cost money, any training activities that the council needs to do or deems necessary to do, be part of, that's where these monies come out of. And whether you divide it up into two different activities of 7,000 and 3,000, or whether you say $10,000, it's the same principle. It's going to come out of this money. And so, have we used all of it as budgeted for 2020? No, because COVID had us restricted for a great number of months. But we would use it moving forward now, and as things open up more and more. And so, it obviously needs to remain. And I would keep the amounts the same. And if you want to combine it, that's fine. But I think having it separate is helpful.
Just referencing something Bambi had mentioned earlier, I did go back and look at our 2018 plan, and it did distinguish between two things. It had council members' participation in training and educational opportunities that we see here, and it also had something about participating in partners. So it was two different things. So I'm not sure why it's distinguished in that way, unless it's as mentioned there, just to keep track of it. But so it was.
I think it's just an easier way to keep track of it, honestly. I think that's why it was done.
Actually, I want to say maybe we can go back to the DD Act requirements. It may have derived from one of those three stipulations. Let me go back to that real quick.
Can I say something?
Yes, Jill, you have the floor.
I think, Randall, you had addressed it, but I know that we had in probably 17 or 18 had something in activity that's dated allowed funding for council members to participate in partners, but then we had a training with Cheryl and she suggested that we adjust it because the feds, it was really not allowed for council members to be in partners, so we took it off our plan.
Yes. What happened was we had an issue a few years back of lack of participation in partners. And so the council decided to open it up to ask if council members would like to attend. And I and one other person that year did. And the following year, I believe one or two other council members did as well. And Cheryl suggested that we change that, not because we did anything improper, but because council members do participate in funding partners, that it gave the appearance of impropriety, and we don't want to do that. And so that's why we changed. And you're absolutely correct. The council voted to change that so that now council members cannot attend. But even before we had pulled out the money for council members to attend, we have been dividing these two pots of money into two separate activities. And as Courtney rightly pointed out, I think it might be part of the DD Act to do so. So we'll certainly look into that. But whether we combine it or whether we keep it as is with two separate activities, the amounts, I believe, should remain the same. That way we make sure we have plenty of funding for any trainings that the council, any members of the council may need or require.
So I pulled up the DD Act requirements again, and number 2, that number 2, Roman numeral number 2,
yes,
indicated about leadership training, but I don't know if that has been misinterpreted. I would like to share that with you again and see if my interpretation of that is different than what y'all's interpretation is. Let me find it again. Here we go. So number 2 states, support opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities who are considered leaders to provide leadership training to individuals with developmental disabilities who may become leaders. So to me, that sounds like we need to have self-advocates training other self-advocates to be leaders, not necessarily provide funding for council leadership to participate in training.
I think you're right. I think it looks to be a well-intentioned misinterpretation on our part of the rule there.
So I know that People First is our self-advocacy organization, our state self-advocacy organization, and that they sometimes conduct training with other leaders. So I'm wondering if that needs to, if we're combining number 1 and number 2 with our activity 1.2.1, to provide funding to People First. Maybe we need to state that in the activity to make sure that the feds know that we are addressing both.
Yes, I think that'd be a good thing to do. Okay. To state there what the money is for and what we're doing.
Oh, let me stop that share. Ooh, pardon me.
So Courtney, is that already being done with that 20,000, or are you adding something to it, which means we need to increase the pot of money?
That's up for discussion with you guys. When we do a contract for this activity, we'll make sure that the promotion of self-advocates, training other self-advocates is in that contract. So if you all want to include, I'm sorry?
You're saying is you're adding something to activity 1.2.1.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're adding something more, because if they're already been using the 20,000 for something else, then we need to consider increasing their amount of money if they're going to be required to do something more.
You're allowed to suggest it. So so now the issue would be, how much do we provide for this activity? It's currently at 20,000, right? I believe that's 20,000. Yes.
So forgive me because I got sidetracked for a few minutes. What prompted us to go back for you, Courtney, to read what you just read from the DD Act? Was there something related to the 7,000 and 3,000 that prompted you to go back and read that?
I was remembering that there was something about leadership training, and activity 1.1.5 was why I wanted to review the DD Act again to see what it specifically stated. And that's why I thought that maybe we needed to specifically state in our activity that we are advocating for, or we're helping to provide leadership training of self-advocates to train other self-advocates in leadership roles and leadership positions, because that's what to me, that's what the DD Act stated that we're supposed to be doing as number 2.
So how do we have any idea how actively involved, if at all, are any of the DD Council members of the self-advocates on the DD Council? Are they also members of People First and involved in this so that they could be getting training from People First, and then also as they become leaders, that they can be sharing that information back as sitting on boards, so that there's this complete collaboration going on? Is that occurring?
And that could actually be achieved if you're referencing other council members who are self-advocates participating in training, that can come from 1.1.4. And then if we are contracting with someone, probably People First, for them to provide training that's provided by self-advocates for other self-advocates to become leaders. So that's why it could be either one. If it was from a council member, if a council member is participating, it could be 1.1.4, or if People First is putting it on, it could be through 1.2.1. So that way we're catching it in either regard. Does that make sense? Or did that answer your question?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure it's what I asked, but now I'm not sure. I guess I'm just trying to see if there's a collaboration going between People First and the members that are on the council to make sure we're creating, because let's face it, I'm not saying that the self-advocates are not leaders. What I'm saying is we can always, all of us can always use training to better ourselves and learn more. So I'm just wondering if there's the collaboration going, that they are also members of People First, or can we get them, if they're interested, that kind of thing. I don't know, I'm talking out loud now, but I'm just wondering if we're going to put an extra promote self-advocacy, participating in training of other in leadership positions, then I don't personally think 20,000 is enough. If they've already been using it for other purposes, I think there needs to be definitely more money. Do I know how much at this point? No, I'd have to do a little bit of research, maybe overnight, just to kind of get a feeling more of that.
Well, we can revisit. All of this can be revisited. Nothing's set in stone until tomorrow's meeting ends.
Okay.
So that can be something, if you would like to research, Liz, I would welcome it.
Okay.
And we can revisit this, but for right now, let's leave it as is and let's move along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Miss Kelly Monroe available? Is she on the call? I can't see. I'm sorry. No? Okay. Never mind then.
She's on, but
I think her mic is not working properly.
Wasn't working. Oh wait, she has her hand raised now, so maybe the mic.
Okay. Kelly, you have the floor.
You should be able to talk, Kelly.
Hey,
Hey
You
there.
have the floor.
So actually, our current contract is with ARC of Louisiana for People First to receive funding. Can you tell us about how much it would be for us to fund the activities that the self-advocates training other self-advocates would be conducting?
I mean, we could probably take care of it within the amount that we have. Maybe we might need a little bit more, but we do have some funds coming through OCDD where self-advocates do train other self-advocates. But if you're wanting like some additional training, then we could do that with a little bit of extra funds. I don't know if that helps answer your question or not.
Okay. So are we talking about maybe 5,000?
Do you think 25,000 would be adequate, Kelly?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think they would definitely be able to do that. I know that there are a couple of people who were on the council who are self-advocates who are also People First members and leaders in People First, like chapter presidents. So anyway, so I just thought I'd answer that too.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
We have a comment from Ms. Karonda Corley.
Yes, Ms. Karonda, you have the floor. Or rather, you can read her comment. I mean.
Gotcha.
Brenton.
It says, if we are not sure of the meaning, then it would be prudent of us to seek clarification from the feds, Mr. Fleming or Ms. Winchell. We should never assume.
Thank you for that. Okay, so is everyone in agreement with the changes to 1.2.1? And again, any and all of this plan can be revisited through tomorrow's meeting as well. But this gets us going today. And so is everyone in agreement with those changes? Okay. So the next item to be considered, Courtney, is?
The next activity with a cost associated is activity 1.4.3 on the 2021 action plan. And that is for the creation of videos with a $51,000 price tag.
Right. And that was a recommendation from the Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee last year as well. So I would recommend we keep that and continue to work towards that with that same amount.
Bambi has her hand raised.
Yes, Bambi.
Did we spend the 51,000 last year? That was the amount we had in last year's budget. Is that correct?
That's what we're spending right now.
Right.
Or we're going to spend that for this year?
Correct. The contract was written for 51,000.
And it was it was the intention to have it for another 51,000 as well?
That's up to you guys. That's what y'all need to discuss.
Well, I'm just asking for, I guess, historical information. Was that the intention? Because sometimes we do things and we know it's a one-time thing, or sometimes we know that there's going to be a multiple year investment in something. So I guess I'm not understanding what this is exactly.
So I guess that's what we're discussing, is if you guys want to continue with doing another contract for another round of videos. I don't know if that's something that you guys want to do on an annual basis.
Let me ask this, Courtney, before we proceed with discussion on this topic. We're doing it now. And so in terms of what we're doing and what we have done up to this point with this item, have you received positive feedback? Has the staff received indication that this needs to proceed at this level, that more needs to be done?
Well, we've only released one video. They submitted 3 to us so far, and we've only released 1 so far. So they've got the rest of their contract year. So from now until the end of September, we'll be releasing videos, not every Friday, but close to every other Friday.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just now starting. You guys are just now going to be able to start to see what O'Neill Communications has been doing with the contract. So I can't adequately tell you what kind of feedback because it's just now starting.
Right.
You have a couple hands raised, Randall, from Liz and Rashad.
Rashad, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious. It must have been before I came on. What's the purpose of the videos? Is for exposure or marketing or what?
I believe its intent was to help promote awareness and to educate members of the public and individuals with developmental disabilities on certain subject matters. So I can pull up that activity because it was quite a list.
Yes.
So it was videos and other visual materials on the topics of self-advocacy, obtaining employment, grade promotion and graduation pathways, and accessing home and community-based services, including waivers.
I will say, I believe OCDD has a stakeholder group that they've started for different visual materials as well. But also Liz has her hand raised too.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I was just curious, where are these videos being shown? Are they on the website, the DD Council website? Are they on the Facebook pages? I haven't seen one. I know I saw something come out recently saying they were going to be interviewing families or something, but I haven't seen one yet.
I believe it has been shared on our social media.
Okay. And so the video is going to be like, each video is going to be on one of the specific topics. And is it focused on how to get involved in self-advocacy? Like, is it recommendations of different ways, or what does that look like, I guess?
Right. I believe one of the videos that I've seen so far is they talked about Lacan and getting involved in self-advocacy. And I believe they talked about partners in policy making during that one as well. I'm trying to remember what the other video was about, being a stakeholder and being involved in commissions and councils, and things of that matter. I hope, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thanks.
So I would recommend we definitely keep this item for now, and maybe we'll do a little research tonight, this evening and tonight, to make sure to see if we would need the exact amount again. But I think the work is definitely there for them to do on topics. And so I'm not sure how far into the current contract they are and what's left. So I'll do a little research there for tomorrow, and we'll revisit the issue on the amount of money. But I think for the moment, it'd be a prudent thing to keep this as an activity, and then we'll revisit the amount once we do a little digging into it.
Bambi also has her hand raised.
Yes, Bambi.
So I think the questions that we'll need answered is what is being done? What's the deliverables for this 51,000? Like,
Correct.
how many videos? How long are
Correct.
these videos? I saw the video that was published and it was like 2.5 minutes. Are they all going to be 2.5 minutes, or are they going to be longer?
Yeah, I'll reach out and talk to them and see where they are in relation to how many there will be, about how long, and that type of thing. And then also just want to look and see what, based on those answers, is there anything left to cover at the end of that contract?
But, I mean, shouldn't that be outlined in their contract? We shouldn't have to reach out to them. That should be
No.
like.
I mean, I've got to pull up the contract and look at it. If I have to reach out to them, I will do so. It is
Okay.
outlined in the contract, and if I have to reach out to them, I will do so. Okay, so Courtney, the next item.
All right. The next activity that has a cost associated with it is 1.4.4, and that is for the creation of emergency response resources with a cost of $7,500. And I believe that current contract is with Trach Mamas.
Correct. Are we in agreement to keep that objective and amount?
Not mistaken, that is to create a website. I don't know if there's continued need at that amount to build another website. I think some of that amount they factored in keeping up the website for a couple of years, I think.
Okay. So again, one more thing we'll look at and revisit tomorrow. What's the next thing, Courtney?
Hold on just a second. I want to add that to.
Okay.
The current plan. Well, if I can find it. May I ask it, is my screen being shared? I cannot tell.
No.
Okay, thank you. The next activity with a cost associated with it is 1.4.5, and that is to fund education and information on voting rights with a price tag of $7,000.
And again, that's a contract we're currently doing. So do we have any update on where we are in that contract as far as the deliverables?
Actually, that was an activity that was recommended by Chris Rodriguez.
Yes.
The P&A, our P&A, or Disability Rights Louisiana, was already doing that, and there was a misunderstanding. He was wanting to give the council $7,000 to do that activity.
Okay, so that might be one we can go ahead and eliminate.
It's currently on our plan for this year, so we'll try to do something this year with that, but
Right. But in terms of next year's plan, the objective should be met, one would hope, right?
correct. And I think that might be, so if you look at objective 1.1, there's already language in here to address voting. So
Right.
if you keep the activity for the videos, that could actually be something that replaces one of these other topics that we're already getting a video on.
Okay.
That's just a suggestion. It's up to you guys.
I know. Thank you for the suggestion.
This is Bambi. I'm a little bit confused. So what you're saying is in our current, this year's plan, we have $7,000 budgeted for activities around voting. But we're not using that?
Like I said, it was a misunderstanding. We thought we were going to contract with DRLA to give them $7,000, but it was a misunderstanding. He was wanting to give us $7,000. So
Okay.
that wasn't, that didn't work out like we,
But did the council do anything in regard, even if we didn't spend money, did we have any activities to help with?
I believe we've probably promoted some things on our social media.
We have promoted on social media. We've promoted some things, I believe, done by the Advocacy Center, or what it's now called. Excuse me, my mind went blank. Thank you.
Rights. Yeah.
Disability Rights Louisiana, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that that's enough. I mean, I know if Lillian was on the call, Lillian would definitely, she has been doing a lot of work around voting, and we have some major issues with access to voting.
Sure.
And so I would just like to keep that maybe for discussion for tomorrow, because I don't think just promoting videos is enough. I don't have the data, but I don't think that people with developmental disabilities are participating in the voting process as they should be. And I think we need to address that.
Noted.
We have a comment from Ms. Veronica Corley.
Yeah.
Says,
yes, you can read it.
If we're going to continue to address funding and possibly more funding for our contracts, then why are we not addressing diversity and inclusion in the language?
I believe that's probably part of the language in the motion Dr. McKee intends to make.
Correct.
At the executive committee, is that our contracts specifically contain requirements for diverse cultural participation.
Correct. That way we ensure that all contracts moving, these and all those moving forward in future, do exactly that.
Also, Ms. Jill Hano has her hand raised.
Okay, Jill, you have the floor.
So, okay, first off, are we going back and forth between the FY for our references from the FY21 plan and the 5-year plan from our last 5-year plan?
Correct.
And then, okay, and then you kind of answered my next question. So now we're putting in activity 1.1.7 for voting.
Correct.
And where was it before?
That was activity 1.4.5.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right.
No problem.
Thank you, Courtney.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other thoughts or comments on the voting activity? Anything need to be rephrased, language change? Okay, would y'all like to discuss the next activity?
Yes.
Okay, so the next activity with the cost associated is activity 2.7.2, and that is to fund training on supported decision making.
Right.
I'm sorry about that. That has a cost right now of $50,000. And I believe those activities have been going very well. Trying to think. Is this something that you guys want to continue, or is that something that just needs to be a 1-year service, 1-year activity?
Well, what's the feedback you're getting on it? You said it's going very well, so can you elaborate?
Is Miss Ebony Haven on the call?
She is not.
Okay.
It looks like we have a hand raised. Jill may have been trying to raise her hand. I'm not sure. It looks like Liz has her hand raised, and we have another comment from Miss Corona Corley.
Okay, can we read Ms. Corley's comment and then Liz has the floor?
She said, question, the 5-year plan addresses the subject matters, objectives the DD Council feel are pertinent, not necessarily the contracts. Can we please add language regarding diversity and inclusion to the 5-year plan in addition to all contracts language?
All right, thank you, Ms. Corley. Liz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Randall. I just think we need to keep in mind that some of these contracts have just started within the last year or two. And
Right.
I think we just need, and like, for instance, like the one with the videos and with the supported decision making, and obviously the one with Trach Mamas, but that's a website, so I don't know what that, but I think we need to keep in mind that it may take more than 1 year to actually get all of the information and get what's out there, get people aware of what's going on and that kind of thing. So I think we want to keep that in mind when we are stating this, is that maybe the fact also that we're only maybe 6 months into the actual contract, so it's hard to know if it really had an impact. And the thought of pulling anything would be a missed opportunity to continue making sure that there's awareness out there for some of these ones that were just picked up last year.
Which are most of the ones we've been currently discussing.
Correct.
Right. I mean, it's been less than 6 months, actually. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So I'd be hard pressed to say not to continue it, to at least give yourself the opportunity to make sure that you're touching the amount of people that could be touched by the different initiatives.
Noted. Thank you.
I'm not sure if Jill still had a comment to make.
Jill, do you have a comment?
I don't know, but now I do. Like, are we gonna get this with the changes and read a copy of this with the red writing?
I will be more than happy to share this document after today's meeting.
Because I think, I don't know, y'all. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Randall, I see that Ashley McReynolds is on, and I know that she's been leading up the supported decision making. I don't know if y'all wanted to ask her to ask where she is with it.
I'd be happy to, if she has something to add to enlighten us, I'd be happy to hear it. She's got the floor. Ashley, would you like to speak to this activity?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we started our trainings in I believe it was January, and we have completed 4 or 5. We did 2 in March in Region 5 and had about 30 participants in the training. I have the results of the like the responses from our Survey Monkey, some of the questions that we asked. Do you have a better understanding of supported decision making? 100% said yes. Is supported decision making something you would now consider using? 100% said yes. On some of the things that were helpful, some of the comments, I learned about supported decision making and how it does not compromise the health and safety of our loved ones. The legal knowledge that I gained will be very helpful. Learning that this is now a new legal alternative to some other legal options. I have a better idea of how supported decision making works, and I love the offer to mentor people throughout the process. And then we talked about like, what else would you add to make the training more helpful? People responded with nothing. I can't say that anything wasn't helpful. I wouldn't add anything. None. Some other feedback: great training, will participate again to continue to get a deeper understanding. My need to hear this information multiple times reminds it cut off. So it has been really good. The all of them have been well attended. The only one that was poorly attended was actually here in Region 2. We had it the Monday after we had the freeze. I know we had just gotten our power back like 24 hours before the training. So we do plan on rescheduling that one. But all of them have been very, very well attended. And I am mentoring 3 people right now out of the 5. One of them reached out after the training. And then I have another one that's interested, but they haven't like committed to actually do the training yet. So we'll be scheduling the rest of our trainings. We'll have probably 1 or 2 in each of the next, months until the contract year's up. But I do know that Melanie and I have talked about, once like this year's up, do we, sort of shift the narrative into, how supported decision making like has worked. So working with individuals to share their stories in their trainings. Because right now it's really more about just educating people on the actual opportunity for supported decision making. So looking at maybe shifting it to, sharing the success stories around supported decision making.
Okay, so do you anticipate that you would need the same amount as you needed for the initial program?
If we switch it the way we have, Melanie and I have had just like conversations, the way we would shift it, I would say yes, because it would be a completely different training compared to what we're doing right now.
Understood. So,
but I know like we do have a lot of feedback of, please let me know when the next training is. We do have people participating in the training multiple times. It is a lot of information in an hour and a half.
Sure.
I do send them a copy of the training. I try to incentivize people to complete the surveys because we don't have a very high success rate in getting our Survey Monkeys back. So I try to wait till I get the majority of the responses back, and then I send out the PDF version of the PowerPoint. I send out the sample agreement in the Word document so they can just type in it. And then I'll also send out a handbook that we created for individuals with disabilities and their families or caregivers for them to use.
Okay. So is everyone in agreement with keeping the activity of funding for this item?
Definitely.
And the amount?
Yes. But is there any way we can get some kind of like report on that feedback to share with the council, just to know how well to just monitor the progress of the initiatives?
Yes, ma'am. We will be discussing the status report during the quarterly meetings. So the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee will specifically be addressing this activity.
Okay.
And I do send Jill the all of the results from the Survey Monkeys. I send all of that to Ebony every month.
Okay, thank you, Ash.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if Miss Haven was available. I was going to have her speak, but that's okay.
Y'all know how I am.
No, that's good. Thank you, Jill.
Okay. So we are keeping the 50,000 attached to this activity?
I think definitely I'm very impressed with the feedback.
Randall, you had two hands raised, Liz and Miss Coranda Corley.
Okay. We'll get to Miss Corley and then Liz, and then we'll take a 10-minute break.
Actually, it's about 4 o'clock and we need to recess for the day.
Oh, recess for, okay. Do you have anything else we have to cover before we do that?
Public comment and Miss Liz Gary.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're at a stopping point that you're comfortable with before we adjourn for the day.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and so Ms.
I will
Corley,
send
you have
this document out to everyone, to the council.
Okay,
great.
Great. Ms. Corley, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, it is very problematic to me to actually sit back and listen to the numbers that were actually given a few minutes ago of how many people were actually reached, because I would really like to know how many people from diverse backgrounds, culturally diverse backgrounds, considering indigenous Black and brown people are not brought to the table as much. So I would really like to know how many from different racial ethnicity groups are actually having access to these services. Secondly, I would like to know how many English language learners have actually had access to a lot of these programs and services too. Last but definitely not least, I would like to know how many people that are blind and deaf have actually had access to these services and have actually been able to receive the any of this stuff in writing, such as Braille for those that are blind. I will really like those numbers, because when we take all of that into consideration, then we will then know that we should not be trying to say, okay, well, let's continue with these contracts. No, let's put the language in regards to not only our 5-year plan, but all contracts for now and future references going forward, so that these different groups are not left out. That is our requirement of the DD Act. That is also a requirement of us, courtesy of Civil Rights Act. That's why I specifically said that we actually need to make it mandatory for all council members, including executive council members and staff of the DD Council, to actually learn the DD Act, to learn Civil Rights Act, to learn Robert Rules of Order, to learn conflict of interest, because we continue to violate all of these laws every single time we have a meeting. And it is entirely disheartening that we are failing this disabilities community. So again, we really need to make it imperative that we actually address not only those trainings, but all of the information that you asked that you're going to bring back tomorrow, that we actually bring that tomorrow, but we also bring forth that language that I'm desperately asking for, that Ms. Bambi Polizzola asked for, and that Dr. Hyacinth McKee was requesting as well, because it's imperative, and that way we can make sure that all members of our DD and ID community can and will be serviced. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as I stated earlier, we will entertain a motion, hopefully given by the vice chair at our next executive committee meeting, which would address making sure that every contract, including these, contains the language you're requesting. So you have not been ignored today. It's just we want to make sure that the motion is well worded and done properly and would apply to any and all contracts from now moving forward. So I just want to be clear about that. Your concern will be addressed, and we are and will always work toward better compliance for federal regulations and rules.
Randall, you also have Liz, and well, Jill did have her hand raised as well, and Miss Kelly Monroe has her hand raised too.
Okay, Liz, and then Jill, and then Kelly.
Thank you.
Liz,
No,
you have the floor.
Thank you, Randall. Just wanted to touch base based on what Ashley had said about the stating that they would love to attend again because it's so much information. And I think that definitely states the need for it continue. And I know we said we did. I just wanted to reinforce that. And also the fact that she said that they would move into a different direction. I think it would be a good thing to do both. I mean, if you're going to move in a different direction, but also continue to still offer, because I think there are a lot of people out there that do not know what supported decision making is. And I think it's important that they do know. We've lived years and years and years of talking about making sure that we have independence for, and self-determination for people with disabilities. And this is an opportunity to not get their tutorship done and to not get interdicted. And I said, this is probably one of the most important, in my opinion, things that needs to move forward for people with disabilities to ensure that they are able to speak for themselves and not have those rights taken away. And I think this is a very, very important issue. I think everyone knows that 2 or 3 years ago is when Ashley and I went to a conference that the DD Council supported us. They actually gave us the money for it, and to be able to attend that conference in Maryland. And it was powerful to learn about supported decision making and know how important it is for individuals with disabilities to be able to have those rights and not have them stripped away when they can't speak for themselves. So this is very, very important. And I will for years carry forward with this because of the capabilities it will give to individuals with disabilities to be able to have their own self-determination, for sure.
Thank you, Liz. And I think we want to make sure that in doing so, we reach every member of the community in all levels and all ethnicities and diversities of our community.
100%.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then was it Bambi?
Well, Jill, I'm not sure if she.
I'm sorry, Jill.
And then Kelly.
What activity was the supported decision making?
It was on the 2021 plan. It was 2.7.2.
Right in front of my face. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And I believe Miss Kelly Monroe had her hand raised.
And then Kelly, you have the floor.
So I wanted to kind of get more clarification of what you guys were, well, not really what you guys were requesting, but what Corlando was requesting. I'm not sure we would know someone's ethnic background. We don't ask those questions. We do advertise the trainings through Facebook, through the website, through other groups, if someone requires any type of accommodation such as Braille, we will make sure that they get that. So I'm not real sure how to address that, that comment. So I guess I'm looking for more clarification on that.
Well, do you have data as it relates to, has anyone who is blind or with difficulty with sight, has anyone currently fit that criteria that you're serving?
No, that really wasn't my question, but yeah, we have not, no one has requested that thus far, but we know how to get that if we do. I guess I'm trying to go back to the diversity comment, and I'm trying to figure
Yes.
out where we wouldn't know. We don't ask that question if like who's attending and if, you know, what their backgrounds are. And so is that something that you guys are now asking for us to do? Or, and if so, do you have an example of what one might look like? I guess I've just never seen that on an evaluation.
Is there data that you have related to that you said with regard to ethnicity, you don't ask the questions, obviously you don't have that data, which is why I asked about the blind question, because the other thing she brought up was about those who are blind. And so
Yeah, no. Only if they request it would we
so has anyone requested it to your
no, they
knowledge?
haven't. Mm-mm.
Okay, that was my question.
No.
Okay.
And then a lot of, like, we have put it in different formats and make sure that we don't put things in PDFs all the time, because readers can't read things that are in PDF. So we make sure that it's done in both ways. But no one's asked for anything in Braille. So, but if they do, I can assure you that any type of ADA requirement or request would be made. I mean, would be
honored.
Yes.
Okay. That's important to know. Thank you.
If I may interject just for a moment, though,
Please.
We do have language in our contracts, or at least the ones that I approve, about collecting demographic information of participants that include their gender, their race, and their location, whether it be urban or rural. And we also ask them if they are a self-advocate, or if they're a family member, if they're a direct service worker, a provider agency, or if they're a other professional.
Correct. And so do we have that data with relation to this contract?
Yeah, well, we have the location, whether they're a self-advocate, a parent, a provider, we have that. But we do not ask what their race is. And we can usually figure out what their gender is, but we do not normally ask those things on an evaluation. I mean, you usually only get a good 5 to 7 questions. And I guess we could use those questions to fill it out, but I didn't think it was, I guess in my mind, it's just didn't think it was an appropriate, anyway, if that's what you guys want, we can get that. But they're already, the evaluations are difficult for people to get them to fill out 5 questions. And I know when I received a registration the other day, and it was a Lacan roundtable, I was like, golly, why do they need to know all this? And I was like trying to hurry up and jump onto a roundtable, and really almost missed it because I was still filling out the registration form. But if that's what you guys want, we can do it. It's just a lot of questions to ask someone when what we really want to know is, did you get the information that you needed? And if not, what else could we provide for you?
So I guess my question is, can it be asked? And you essentially, I think, just answered when you said you can ask it.
Yeah,
so it can be asked at registration, correct?
Yeah, we can ask it. Well, yeah, we can.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments, Brenton?
There's some things in the chat. I mean, Bambi had made a comment that I'm sure if ADA accommodations were requested, the contractor would provide it. Ashley had already made the comment that they did not have any requests for their SDM trainings. Ms. Corley clarified that she was not singling out a particular contractor, but just want to make sure all contractors address ADA. And then it looks like Ms. Kathy Dwyer asked if the council should start asking contractors to track that information. That was during the conversation about should we track race? Because some federal grants, and she alluded to FHF of Greater New Orleans does ask. Susan Reen stated that FHF centers collect that type of data on their registrations. Bambi asked if it could be requested on registration. It can. Ms. Kathy Dwyer also said that it is okay to ask about race, ethnicity, as long as it's optional. And Ashley McReynolds said that they will add that question to their registrations from now on for their SDM trainings.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Looks like you do have a hand raised from Ms. Reyna.
And thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just catching up. So excuse me if I'm anything, but I know when you talk about diversity versus then just taking a record of who's attending, I don't see anything available on the website spoken to the state. I don't see anybody reaching out to any diverse communities and ask them to join or try to put out any information, either at a church or a synagogue or a mosque or anywhere there is concentration of population. New Orleans East has a lot of Vietnamese. Jefferson Parish has a lot of Arabs, Spanish. So I don't see you guys making an effort to reach those where they are and just taking data of who's attending. If they don't know about the meeting, they're not going to be attending. So you're going to have a checkbox nobody's going to check because you're not going to them where they are. And we know where the populations are. So I think every contract, every agency that's working under the contracts need to make an actual effort to reach out those communities where they are, provide language translation live and printed material. And maybe we can see in the future a couple of those diverse populations sitting at the DD Council seat. Thank you.
Thank you. And we certainly want that as well. Thank you for bringing that point up. Are there any other questions or comments?
None that I see, Randall.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your participation today, your points of view, and your feedback. We very much appreciate it. Tomorrow will be, Wednesday will be another very busy day where we do finalize these recommendations. And so we will be looking into the things that we indicated we would need our further review for Wednesday. And I look forward to more robust discussion and finalization of our recommendations on Wednesday. So thank you, everybody, for your attendance today, and thank you to the public for your feedback. And we'll see everyone on Wednesday at 1 p.m.
Randall, can we get Courtney to send us an update on what she just typed up today, just so we kind of...
Yes, I was going to have her send that to everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So with no objection from the committee, hearing none, assuming there is none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
To recess, not adjourn.
To recess. I'm sorry. We have to continue. So motion to recess. My apologies. It's late.
And we just need a unanimous consent.
All right. So does anyone object to us taking a recess until Wednesday to continue the work? All right. Hearing no objection, we have unanimous consent. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.